Commissioner Hicks has been here. This is your third year. He's come the first 2 years just to attend the conference. He's spoken. But we're going to give him some additional time. He's going to come and talk with us about the Election Assistance Commission and what they're doing, what their role is in terms of our election system, and the work that they're doing on behalf of voters with disabilities. I want you to give him an Arizona welcome, Commissioner Thomas Hicks.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
How's everyone doing today?
Great.
I have a couple of quick things first. I want to thank you all, and Ronaldo, for having me here today. Again, this is my third time here, and each time that I say that I'm coming out to Arizona for the African American Disability Conference, I get the look of, heck, this is a microphone. I thought he was doing it. You better not say that. Get a little bit of that. So when I put in for my request for travel, because it has to be, I'm chair, but someone else has to check off the box that I'm not putting the money in my own pocket. Basically, when I say African American Disability Conference in Phoenix, Arizona, I get the look of there's black folks who live in Arizona. But that's neither here nor there. Last night it was a little interesting landing. I flew in late last night, and the pilot came on and said a little bit about how we couldn't land because the ground was wet, and I was like, so I got a little scared, but it was all right. It was all right. So what I want to do, since I have a few minutes to talk to you today, what I want to do is I have to do the company line so that I can justify coming out and talk about the EAC. And then I want to talk to you all like I talk to my family about elections and so forth, because I feel like coming out here is like being with family. So, company line. I'm chairman of the United States Election Assistance Commission, which means that, and it's kind of funny, and I never thought about it until about a couple of weeks ago, because I go to a lot of meetings to talk about elections in different groups, different organizations, and usually I should be paying attention to it, but I don't. That usually I'm the only African American in the room, which is always a little bit of, hey, what's going on here? But it's, so I am, in the way that my staffers said it, is I am the highest ranking federal official, African American federal official who exclusively deals with elections. So take that as you may. So I love my job. I'm the only person to serve as chair of the EAC twice. And that being said, since that was found out, 2 new people got nominated, and I still have my job, but we have 2 new people coming on board, and they came on last week, and I was able to swear them in. Ben Hovland from the state of Maryland, and Don Palmer from the state of Virginia. It's a bipartisan commission, so it's 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and we did something, so on my flight out, I was reviewing a vote that we were supposed to take. So it took us a year to get to this point, but I was able to cast that ballot today, and I don't see her in the room, but there's a great woman who was able to scan that in, and I can send it back to our General Counsel to verify it. But we are moving forward with new voting system guidelines, so voluntary voting system guidelines, which haven't been. We've updated them briefly in 2015, but for the most part, they're brand new, and it's going to be a new, innovative way for companies to make voting equipment and make sure that it's secure, accessible, have interoperability, and so forth. But this is the first real time since 2007 that these standards have truly been updated. And if you want to think back to 2007, that's before any of y'all or us, let's see, I'm going back to, any of us had these things in our pockets called smartphones. So if you think about voting on something that hasn't been updated since the smartphones came out, we're updating our standards to that. So we've been working on that for the last 4 years or so. What other thing? So the other thing, so when I came last year in February, the very next month, the Congress got together and the President signed legislation to give my agency $380 million to pass out to the states for the improvement of the elections process. So I was also chair in 2016, which was a watershed moment because people kept talking about foreign influence of our elections process, but I had to constantly remind folks that meddling in elections is nothing new. It's been done since we've had elections where people have said, you can't vote because of X, Y, and Z, or hey, Democrats vote on Wednesday, Republicans vote on Thursday. So it's nothing new, but they gave me gave the agency, make sure I say that, gave the agency $380 million to distribute out to the states. So in 2018, when I was chair again, I got a lot more phone calls returned, which is, hey, how much money are you giving our state? So it was done on a population basis. So California got the most because they have the most people, but each state got at least $3 million. And so with that, states are going to be purchasing new voting equipment. They're going to be doing new voter registration systems, hopefully online voter registration systems as well. Another part of my job that I truly love, semi-love, is being able to speak before Congress, because I worked on Capitol Hill for 11 years as a Hill staffer, starting in the minority and then went to the majority and then went back to the minority. And I always say this, that it's always better to work in the majority than working in the minority. So as the Democrats have taken over the House again, they invited me up this week to testify on a number of issues. And that worked out pretty well in terms of, I believe that, and I hope that they are going to come together and give additional funds to the states to improve the elections process overall. So a couple of other things that I have to do before I can move on in terms of what I want to talk about, since there's no one from my agency here. National Voter Registration Act, the Motor Voter Bill, is our one piece of regulatory authority. It's basically our most viewed site on our website at eac.gov. We do a comprehensive voting survey to election officials every 2 years. So in 2019, it will be released in June. It's the Election Administrative Voting Survey, so it's basically like the census for voting. It's basically number of machines, polling places, and so forth, that sort of thing. So it's about almost 2 million data points that are done to talk about the way that people run elections. One of the things that I'm most proud of with our agency is the work that we've done in terms of the Help America Vote Act. There's a small piece in there that none of y'all will find small. It's one line that basically says that if you have a disability, you still have to be able to vote independently and privately. And so that's one piece that our agency has strived for, to ensure that whatever voting equipment comes out, that still is the letter of the law. So when I testified on Wednesday, I was blown up on Twitter that night because I said that we should, if we're going to move towards paper, that we should still be able to allow for folks who have disabilities to vote independently and privately. Everyone cannot handle paper. And so I was told that I should go work for Putin, that, so I grew up poor. So I know it's just like, hey, this is a good job, I like it, but I can make a lot more money elsewhere, and I don't need folks telling me X, Y, Z. So since I knew some of those folks, I sent them private messages on what they can do. So, because not only did I grow up poor, I grew up in, not gonna say that, so anyway, because some of y'all are recording and I still want to keep my good government job. So that being said, there's two other stories I want to tell. The representative, I don't know if he's still here, but he told a story about Barack Obama. So when I I started working on the Hill, and I've worked in conventions for a long time. One of the roles that I had in the 2004 election was, at the 2004 convention, was to work the green room, which is the last room before people get up to speak. And this is the one that Obama went in Boston to give the keynote address. And so my role was to, welcome him in, didn't know who he was. Michelle was there as well. It was great, all that. Did not know anything about them. So my role was to make sure that zippers were up and nothing were in your teeth. So that was, not my first job, but one of the more interesting ones that I had to deal with moving forward with that. So, talked about election equipment. One of the big things that we worked on last year was with disaster relief. So I love my job. I have one of the best jobs that could ever be asked for. Grew up in inner city Boston. Two parents from Georgia, from Georgia. Like, they would send my brother and me down there to say, hey, you're not gonna, you have it good up here in the north. We're gonna send you down to stay with your grandparents for a while. They don't have running water. They don't have bathrooms. They have bathrooms, but it's outside, that sort of thing. So we grew up knowing a few things. So one of the things that I wanted to concentrate on in my role as chair was disaster relief. And I've had the luck of being in this job for 4 years now. I've worked hard at my job, didn't get here by accident, as some folks might think. Went to law school, studied abroad, first to graduate college, high school, and law school in my family, sort of thing. So it wasn't given to me. The one thing that I want to make sure is that when folks go through some sort of natural disaster, that we, as the Election Assistance Commission, can be there to help them move forward. We don't have the money that FEMA has to rebuild and restructure things, but we can give guidance and so forth. So in my 4 years, I've been, and before that, in my jobs on the Hill and in other parts of the government, I've had the luxury of being able to travel to all 50 states. So I've seen all 50 states, and that the last one was crossed off in November when I went from Houston over to LA, over to Salt Lake City, and then up to Montana. So Montana was the last state that I had to visit before I had my 50. And then after that, and so my quickest sidebar in terms of ridiculousness that I've done in my life. So Houston, 80 degrees. LA, 80 degrees. Salt Lake, maybe 50, 45 degrees. Decided not to take a coat. So I get to Montana, and it's snowing. So, and I had my car, but I had to walk a little distance between the parking lot and the meeting places that we had. So, Montana's not the most diverse place in the country. So you have this African-American male, black guy, walking around with no coat. So I got a few looks that day. So, another ridiculous Tom story. So one of the things that I truly loved about last year, in terms of being able to help with the commission overall, was our disaster relief piece. So I went down to Puerto Rico to talk to the election officials there. And it was over a year since Hurricane Maria had gone through, and they still had damage in the building that they had. So they have about a 10-story building for the 3 million voters that they have, running from voting equipment, voter registration, the whole nine. And it's folks don't realize, many folks don't realize that Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, and so they deserve the same relief, help that anyone else on the mainland should get. And if those things had happened in Hawaii, we'd be doing the same sort of thing. So we went down there. I did some filming, and hopefully we'll be able to post that pretty soon, because a little thing happened in December of last year where we were asked not to come to work for 35 days, and that was it was a little bit of a struggle for me because I still had to work, but I wasn't getting paid. So when I finally got paid, I was so happy. I looked at my check and I was like, I could pay the mortgage, car notes coming through. And I was like, oh, it looks like I got a little bit of a raise too. I was like, yay. Then the next check, because they paid us twice, because we missed 2 pay periods, And then for our next pay period, my check was $17.12. Why? Why? Because they forgot to take out any sort of taxes or anything else. So I prepared. I prepared because mama told me, daddy told me that money won't last forever. So I was happy enough that I could laugh about it, but I was not happy about it. So another Tom ridiculous story. So so the next place that I went down to, my last trip from last year was to Bay County, Florida. And most of you might not have heard of Bay County, Florida. Bay County is in the panhandle of Florida, and it was struck really badly by Hurricane Michael, 17 days before the November election. And their election supervisor is a former Navy SEAL. So I'm interviewing this gentleman, mid-50s, I don't know what he has done with being a Navy SEAL, didn't want to ask, but not someone that I would think me sitting across from would start to cry about the troubles that he had gone through to make sure that people could have their right to vote. And being at the election office for 3 days, during the storm, after the storm, cleaning out voting equipment with toothbrushes, not seeing his family and so forth, and his staff coming in as well to help with that. And so there was, when we were driving down there, we drove from Tallahassee to Bay County. It was about a 2-hour drive. And so we could see the turning of the landscape where trees were snapped in half, looking like matchsticks. And you could tell the way that the wind had blown because of the way that the trees were laying. So blowing that way in some areas, blowing and trees snapped that way in other areas. So overall, the light's getting dim, or is it me just running my mouth too long? So, or is that the notice that I'm getting to speed it up a little bit? So we hope that since we're back up and running now, and we have a phenomenal staff, phenomenal. There's only about 25 folks who work for the U.S. Election Assistance Commission. We're based in Silver Spring, Maryland. I'm doing all I can to move us back to D.C. because it might seem, hey, Silver Spring, it's only about 5 or 6 miles away. But 5 or 6 miles away from the Capitol or to the White House is a long distance when you have to go for meetings and so forth. So we're trying our best to move back into the district so we can get a little bit more done. So I want to take a couple of questions, but I just want to talk about 2 more things, basically, maybe 3 things, because I'm not talking about the company stuff in a minute. So today, when I was getting dressed and getting ready to come here, I had the TV on, and I didn't know that today is National Caregiver Day. Everyone knows what yesterday was. It's Valentine's Day for your love and all that. So, but I always view Valentine's Day as not just boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. I view it as family love. So make sure that you call your family to say, I love you, I miss you, I want to be with you, but I can't, but I'm thinking about you. Because my mom and dad, who I love dearly, who came to see me during the shutdown, because I sent them tickets. So they took my frequent flyer miles and came down to see their oldest son, make sure that I was okay. So I did and I told some folks about this earlier, I was doing my little protest of, I'm not going to shave, I'm not going to get my hair cut, and why am I spending more money than I'm making right now, sort of thing. So parents come in for 4 days, they came to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary, and that's a blessing in all itself, because I say it, I'll say it today, I'll say it tomorrow, that I am still surprised one of them has not put a pillow over the other. I love my folks, they can go at it sometimes. And it's nothing I haven't said to them too. So they stayed with me for 4 days. We took in shows and the whole 9, and then they flew back up to Massachusetts. And then the next week, we're starting back to work. I call my folks up, I call them every Sunday, say, how you doing? How was church today? Blah, blah, blah. Mom's on the phone. Hey, Mom, I got my hair cut. Did you shave? Yes, I shaved. Dad gets on the phone. Hey, Dad, got my hair cut. Did you shave? I was like, how bad did I look? Y'all asking if I shaved. So I love my folks with all my heart. I'm really proud of the fact that they are, they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in January. And I always had to do the math because I'm going to be 50 this year. So I always had to do the math to make sure that that rolled out correctly. It still checks out. It still checks out. I love talking about my parents because they are two of the smartest people I've ever known in my entire life. I've met presidents, I've met lawyers, I've met members of Congress and so forth, college professors and the whole nine. But my parents, they might not have had the opportunities that they've bestowed upon me to go off to school, get an education, and move forward with things. But they've always been two of the smartest people I've known. So I always talk about my dad and the fact that my mom is a fantastic, fantastic cook. But we grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment. And this is right when smoke detectors were being put in and things like that. So my mom doesn't know medium or low. It's always high. So she was a rapid cook, and so sometimes you get a little smoke going in the house. And my dad was sick of it. He's just tired, and like the smoke detector's going off. So this man wired the smoke detector. It's probably against all sorts of codes, but he rewired the smoke detectors that had a switch that you could just turn on. And they don't have it in their new house, and that's the other. I'm a little mad at them about this, about growing up in a 2-bedroom apartment. And then when I graduate college, they somehow get a house. And before anyone says it, no, they did not put money towards my schooling so that they could not afford that house. So they got a house after I graduated and moved on. And then they ended up buying another house that they rent out. So I'm like, where'd y'all put all this money? So really happy with my folks. And 2 more things that I would like to talk about before opening this up. One, next year, 2020. I know everyone in this room is registered to vote, and if not, don't raise your hand, just go get it done, because every vote counts. In Florida 2000, 537 votes decided the presidential election. I'm not saying that I would take George Bush back right now. Take it as you want. But I would have rather had Al Gore, because I'm a Democrat. But 537 votes decided the presidential election in 2000. 70,000 votes was the difference of Hillary Clinton becoming president and Donald Trump becoming president. And that's a mixture of the way that counties and jurisdictions were gerrymandered. And so forth. So 2020 is when the census data will be used to redraw a number of districts, congressional districts, local districts overall. So make sure that you get out there and voice your opinion through the ballot box. I always say I'm as rich as Bill Gates and Warren Buffett because they have as much power at the ballot box as I do. They might be able to give money because I'm not into giving my money away. But once they're in that ballot booth, we have the same amount of power and authority. So make sure you exercise that. The other thing about 2020 is that it's the 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote, and the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters will have something, I'm sure, with that. I was lucky enough to speak in their conference in Chicago last year, and it was truly amazing to me, the amount of effort and pushing that folks have for that. So with that, I have one other thing, since I'm seeing that the hook is about to be thrown on me. 10 more. Oh, 10 more. Even better. Even better. All right. Generous. one of the things that I would like for everyone in this room to do, it's okay, you know, one, I already talked about loving your family, loving your friends, let them know how you're doing. If something's not right, say, hey, let's go for coffee, I just need to vent a little bit. It's okay to ask for help once in a while. We all have problems, we all have troubles, but it's good to be able to talk to someone and get those troubles out, whether that should do that through your church, through your coworkers, through your whatever you want to do, family and friends. So make sure you take some time for yourself, basically. The other thing is, take time to get checked out. We as African Americans do a poor job of taking care of our health. One of the things I found out last year, which I still debate, but I'm going to do it because the doctor said so for now, is he said that I am bordering on hypertension in terms of high blood pressure and so forth. So I have to take a little pill every day, but I also go because I have good health care through the federal government, which I am not going to give up anytime soon, to go and get an annual physical to make sure that everything is working fine and whatever, so that I can be around for the next conference in February 28th, 2020. So go get checked out. It's nothing bad to say, hey, you know, my dad suffered from something. My dad had prostate cancer. So it's nothing wrong with going to make sure that you get tested for that and so forth, because I would rather be here tomorrow than being, you know, oh, I'm not going to go do that sort of thing. So go get tested. And that's for you, for women out there. That goes for you too, to make sure that you go get your annual test that you need to get done, because we want you around as well. A disproportionate number of African American families are the family's dynamic is with the woman as the head of household, being the only person in that relationship raising the children. So your kid's going to need you around. Your family's going to need you around. So go make sure you get those tests done. That's basically it. So if there's time for one or two questions, good, easy, nice questions, out here, I would be happy to take it. I love my agency, you know, with the two new commissioners that we have now. I'm only going to be chair for another 2 weeks or so, but I'm still going to stay on the commission, still going to be poking, still going to be making things uncomfortable for folks, but also working together, because I always say that 95% of the stuff that we work on in elections is nonpartisan. The other 5% we can argue about, but that's what a healthy debate is all about, and with our Constitution basically strives for. So I think that is it. I wanted to, you know, my staff said that I have to, turn on that for the notes that I wrote. Twitter. I'm still being told that I have to do Twitter in certain points. So I keep my phone downstairs when I go to bed. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, because I'm an older man now, or older, then I have to go up and do other things. So I'm not tweeting at 5 o'clock in the morning. But if you want to follow me on the Twitter, I'm at RedBlue2024. And that's because I wanted to remain nonpartisan as possible by saying red, blue. I didn't want to put my name there for folks to just go looking for me and so forth. Because I had an ex-girlfriend text me yesterday when I was on a panel saying, hey, your posture needs to be improved. So, and I just wrote back stalker. But, so the other thing is, so I have a great relationship with ex-girlfriends, blah, blah, blah. The only person I don't have a great relationship with is the ex-wife. So, but she gave me, and we have 3 of the greatest kids that anyone could ever want. So, with that, I think that I will be done and just take 1 or 2 questions if possible. Nice questions. Or I will be around for the rest of the conference because there's a couple of things that I wanted to actually take out of this. I think of it as the best conferences are not just ones where you're sitting down talking to people, but also listening and learning something. So that's why I'm spending the entire day here. Even though I'm getting emails from staff about things I need to do back in the office. I could have done that 35 days ago. Glad someone got that. So, any questions? Yep, go right ahead, sir.
My name is Ibrahim. My name is Ibrahim. I am a Fulbright scholar.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I'm attached to the state class. I have a question about your commission, election assistance commission. Are you assisting people with disabilities in terms of election and political participation, or you are assisting general public? One, and second question is
Hold on for 1 second. They're going to bring a microphone to you. So I think I heard part of the question, but I don't think I got it all.
Sorry, one more time.
Okay, my question is that are you assisting people with disabilities in terms of elections in the United States, or you are working for general citizens in the state? That is one. Then the second question is that are you assisting either people with disabilities or whoever you are serving as a commission to have access and compatible election environment, or you are assisting them to participate in the election in terms of political sponsorship? Thank you.
That's a great question, and congratulations on being a Fulbright Scholar. That's an amazing task, and good job. The Election Assistance Commission helps in a nonpartisan way with everyone. So in terms of those folks who have disabilities, we did a card that lays out the 5 rights that you have. You have additional rights, but it lays out as those 5 rights that you have. One of them being to being able to ask a poll worker for help if need be, or bringing anyone in that you want to assist you with casting your ballot if that's what you so choose. So we don't go in and help. We give states best practices on what they should be doing. When we go to national conferences, for instance, we will be at the National Disability Rights Conference, which I believe will be held in Baltimore again this year, to hear from folks and see what sort of things we can move forward. The unfortunate part of my job is that we don't have regulatory authority or enforcement authority. So that's left up to the Department of Justice. So if there are violations in the law, they have to be raised with the Department of Justice to ensure that those things are corrected.
As you know, we have each state have a different way of voting. Do you think we will ever get to where we have the whole United States will vote the same?
I do not. The reason I say that is I don't, because what would work in California is not going to necessarily work in Maine. For instance, Arizona, Colorado, Washington, and Oregon all do vote by mail. So they're allowed to, they send out ballots to the electorate and they send those back. A lot of states allow for folks to send their ballots in 14 days. They have to be postmarked on election day, but actually can be received up to 14 days later. And the number of, the way that I always equate it in terms of, maybe this is what you were trying to get at, but and what I'm listening to is the type of voting system, as in the type of voting machine overall. I equate it to, there should be certain standards that all states should adhere to in terms of voting equipment, and that's what we have with our voluntary voting system guidelines. But I view it as like buying a new car. All cars have to have, their tires have to be, or grass crash requirements and so forth, but you can buy different vehicles, but they all have to have certain sorts of standards. And that's the way that I equate that to.
We have question number 2.
Oh, I don't know. She was talking to me a little earlier about how she's gonna call me in DC, so.
Okay, have they updated the language for voting rights for those with felonies?
So each individual state decides on what the qualifications are for voting in elections. So some states say that if you've served your time, where you're not on probation, you're not incarcerated, then you are automatically restored. Some states say that you have to request to be placed on the voting rolls. There are 2 states, I believe it's Maine and Vermont, that allow for you to vote while you're actually incarcerated. And we do a lot of talking, a lot of folks talk poorly about Florida, but this past election, Florida basically restored voting rights to ex-felons, which I thought was a huge thing because they actually gave it to the constituency to do. And I'm viewing that more and more as a nonpartisan issue. It's more of a rehabilitation, second chance piece that folks have. And so even Tennessee is moving towards that as well. So as I think that there still needs to be talk to say, well, if I have to pay taxes, if I have to do X, Y, and Z, then I should have a voice in the process overall. And so I say that, I don't know what the rules are in Arizona, but I would say to continue on with that fight.
So what is the department doing about the awareness within the community so that, getting the word out there? Because the language is not clear.
But it would be for each individual state. So we don't prescribe to states to say, hey, you should be doing this way, because we don't have that sort of authority. But if the state said, what sort of things should we be working on, we could give them that advice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for
All right. Let's give Commissioner Hicks another round of applause. So, 2 things that Commissioner Hicks talked about. If you're not registered to vote, we have deputy registers in the house today. Maricopa County Election Department is in the house today. So please register to vote. Number 2, the U.S. Census is in the house today. They're hiring, I believe, over 1,000 workers for the census. Commissioner Hicks talked about the census. So please go to their booth there, or you can go to their website, the U.S. Census, and become a census worker.